Thanks once again for dropping by the channel. If you like the content, if you're new to the channel, please hit subscribe, share the video if you enjoyed it, if you felt it was useful. Now let's get into this. So, Felix Cash stops Jason Welborn, 5th round stoppage. This was top of the bill, and out of all the fights I've seen tonight, this was the least competitive, least interesting. It was really Felix Cash teeing off on a heavy bag. Sky asked the question, how much did Jason Welborn have left? How much ambition, how much fire did he have? Not a lot. You know, this was not the Jason Welborn who beat up Marcus Morrison a couple of years ago. This was not the Jason Welborn who beat Tommy Langford twice for the British title. This was not the Jason Welborn who was outboxing Gerard Hurd, believe it or not, in their fight over 2 years ago now. This was a faded Jason Welborn. This was a Jason Welborn who had shown, like, he'd had a long career, tough career. Lost to guys like Frankie Gavin I think he was stopped by Frankie Gavin actually. Lost to guys like that. Was coming off the back of a loss against James Metcalf. James Metcalf looks very, very good. He looks a very good shout. I wouldn't mind seeing him and Felix Cash in the ring. James Metcalf, extremely, extremely good fighter. But this was Jason Welborn showing the signs of a tough career. A tough career. Like I said, his last fight was against James Metcalf. He'd been going between 160 to 154, and I actually think Metcalf is at 154 actually. But he'd been going back and forth between the two weights because obviously he won the British title at middleweight and then fought Hurd at light middle. So he'd been doing that, but you know, he just looked in this fight. He just looked shot basically. I mean, Cash did what he needed to do. He kept it long range. He has decent speed, you know, decent punch variety. I've seen Felix Cash since he turned pro, and I'm still reserving judgment on him. I still don't know how good he is because he's really fought nobody. You know, Jack Cullen and Jason Welborn, they both done great impressions of a heavy bag against Felix Cash. So I want to see Felix Cash in there with someone who can, you know, box with him. You know, who can really test him, because these guys, the only time Welborn really tried was when Felix Cash got close. And he would fight in little very, very minor bursts. I mean, if you're talking over the course of 3 minutes, you're talking about maybe 15, 20 seconds over a 3 minute round of Jason Welborn actually doing it. And the rest of the time, he was just taking body shot after body shot, tucking up, taking right hand after right hand. And eventually, in the 5th round, it was a right hand top of the head that put him down for the first time. And then it was another right hand again, the ropes to put him down for the second time. The first knockdown, he went down to a knee and he looked at the corner, got up at about 9.5. And you knew as soon as he goes down again, that's going to be it. And the corner knew straight away when he went down the second time. He didn't go down heavily. He was just sat on a knee. They went through in the towel, and that was it. So, you know, it's the best name probably on Felix Cash's resume now at this stage. I would imagine he would target the British title next. What with Liam Williams looking at Demetrius Andre. Obviously, both guys are signed to different promoters, so we wouldn't see that fight. I mean, if I wouldn't mind seeing it, I think Liam Williams would go straight through Felix Cash if they ever fought. But, you know, that's a good domestic little scrap. But Liam Williams been looking, you know, he's been looking amazing the last couple of fights. He really has. So he looks set to challenge me. I think he's mandatory for Demetrius Andre. That's a tough fight for Demetrius Andre. He really will need to be switched on against Liam Williams, because Liam Williams is, like, Demetrius Andre's last fight was against Luke Keeler. I mean, Luke Keeler is a homeless man's Liam Williams. Seriously, that's about as much talent as Luke Keeler has. Not much. So that's got to be a good fight. For Felix Cash, I mean, we'll see where he goes next. I mean, there are some fights to be made at 160. Very big for, he's huge for 160. You know, he really does. He looks like a super middleweight in there. So yeah, be interesting to see. I'm still reserving judgment on Felix Cash. I've seen him for a couple of years now, but there's never been anything that's jumped out at me. You know, he's all right speed. He seems to have a bit of punching power there. But I still need to see a little bit more of Felix Cash. You know, he's been a prospect now for 4 years. I still want to see a little bit more of him before I reserve judgment, before I say what I think, how far I think he'll go, basically. So, yeah, that was the main event. Card in a nutshell. I mean, I'm still looking at it. It's on the TV over there. Card in a nutshell was actually quite good, you know. I mean, the Kieran Conway looked good in beating, I forget the guy's name now. We John Doherty stopping Anthony Fox. That was a decent little scrap as well while it lasted. We obviously had Shannon Courtney getting, you know, taking the L, getting humbled against Rachel Ball. That was a fun fight. I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row now I've seen good women's fights, and I mean, I'm someone who was I'm still touch and go with women's boxing, but that was fun. And then obviously we had a good fight between Eric Donovan and Zelfa Barrett. I was happy with that. The main event was the least competitive, as far as I'm concerned. In terms of overall results for this card, I'd give this card a solid. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It wasn't bad. In terms of the fight camps Eddie Hearn's put on, this has to be the best. Obviously with the pay-per-view next week, that would have been better if we had Bacoli versus Kuzman. We don't have that now. So we'll have to see how that goes. But, this card was fun. I mean, I've been so starved for boxing these last few months that it was nice to just get that feeling watching these fights of, what's going to happen? It was just nice to get. I miss it, So hopefully we get more shows like this. Hopefully we get more boxing. I mean, there's fights on tomorrow night, which I'm happy about. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on this. Like I said, Felix Cash did what he needed to do. Beat Jason Welborn. Jason Welborn's probably going to call it quits now at this stage. He seemed to have absolutely nothing left after that. So, that was my thoughts on this. Let me know yours down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Of course, if you guys are new to the channel, if you enjoy the content. And as always, people, I will talk to you.